This will be a fun one. Really fun. We're going on a field trip. That's right, in this video I'm going to tell you everything you've ever wanted to know about mulching brush in South Texas. How much it costs, which machines to use, how quickly these machines clear, and I'm going to show you how they work in the process. Because guess what? On my field trip, I got to check out these machines in action on a large South Texas ranch. And I've got some amazing footage to show you. We're going with a good friend of mine, Theron Schroeder, and he's with Brush Busters. And they've got lots of machines and they do lots of clearing. And Theron was nice enough to invite me down to check out this project on this big South Texas ranch. Hey there and welcome to my channel. My name is Michael Morrow. This is LandownerTV and this is where I make you smarter about your land one video at a time. I'm a land agent in the state of Texas and I can help you find that perfect piece of land for you, or I can help you establish pricing for that piece of land you're considering selling, and when it's time I can help market the heck out of it. But I'm really here because I love talking about land. I freaking love it. So I made this channel to answer some of the more common questions that I hear landowners ask on a regular basis. And guess what? I hear a lot of questions around clearing land, and specifically around mulching. Alright, so where were we? Oh yeah, we were headed to South Texas. Awesome. Now clearly I had to make my required stop at Buc-ee's, get my hippo taco, and a little bit of sweet tea to help me along my way. But once I got there, I was thoroughly impressed. I mean, this ranch is incredible. It's 2,700 acres just outside of Tilden, and it has everything you could want as a landowner. The main operation of the ranch is focused on beef cattle production, but during my brief visit, I saw hogs, big deer, and a ton of turkey. I actually filmed these turkey right out of the cab of my pickup. They're just running around, doing their gobbling thing. And this was actually filmed 4 days after that crazy Arctic freeze in the middle of February. This is just one of the big perks about owning land in this region. You don't have to try hard at all and you get all kinds of wildlife. Now I'm going to tell you about the project on this ranch to highlight more about mulching in South Texas. If you're going to clear your place, no matter where you are in the country, you have several options. But for the most part, there's bulldozing, mulching, and in the Texas Hill Country, there's something a little bit more common, which is shearing, where there's a bobcat with cedar shears in the front of it. I'll tell you, I'm generally not a big fan of bulldozing unless you've got deep topsoils, and I mean topsoils deeper than 2 to 3 feet. The main reason for this, when you have shallow topsoils, like certain parts of South Texas and most of the Texas Hill Country, when you push brush over, you're pulling up those roots with it. And a lot of times, those roots have grown in and around rocks. So when you push them over, you're pulling up more rocks. And I know that you folks in the Texas Hill Country and some specific areas of South Texas, the last thing you want are more rocks. And I have seen some bulldozed places that look like rock farms. But it can be a cheaper and even better option in some other areas. Just be aware. But mulching has really gained a lot of popularity in the last 20 years. And it is easy to see why. Number one, like I just mentioned, it can be less destructive on topsoils. In the mulch it creates, while it's chewing up that brush, it stays on the ground for immediate cover, which can help hold soils in place until herbaceous vegetation has time to establish. Now, a benefit mulching has specifically in South Texas is how it deals with prickly pear. If your ranch looks like this and there's just prickly pear everywhere, one of the last things you really want to do is bulldoze it. Because guess what? You're really just going to make it really mad. All those sheared pads have the potential to establish themselves as a brand new cactus. And I've seen does pastures come up with really thick stands of prickly pear. And check this out. This is from that ranch just after it mulched through that patch of prickly pear. And it's hard to imagine any of those pads coming back to life to reestablish. Now the downside of mulching is that these machines are really expensive and they require a ton of maintenance because there's a lot of moving parts. For this reason, they need to make up for this expense with productivity. The good news is they typically do. This is one of the reasons you don't see a lot of ranches buying their own mulcher. Although in this instance, this ranch does have their own mulcher, but it's a smaller one. And he brings Theron and brush busters in for the bigger projects. In many cases, it makes most sense for ranches to buy a bulldozer over a mulcher, because a dozer can do other things like push dirt around, grade roads, etc. A mulcher really just mulches. But like I mentioned, you do have several options in terms of which size mulcher you use on your property. And each has their advantages or disadvantages. So let's go through them right now. For starters, you have the 100 to 130 horsepower skid steer mounted mulchers. And they can be Caterpillar or ASV. There's a bunch of different varieties that'll put a mulching head on that machine. But in general, for these type of machines, you're looking to pay between $1,750 and $2,000 a day. Some contractors will even charge you half a day rate, but they're going to tack on mobilization to and from your ranch as well. So be prepared for that. But the mobilization for these machines is much cheaper because in many cases they can be hauled on a utility trailer or a gooseneck. In light brush, like what you see here, those small machines can go between 3 to 5 acres a day, just depending on the operator and the thickness of that terrain. For brush just a bit thicker, like what the Tiger Cat was clearing in this video, this machine is going to slow down a bit and go between 1 to 2.5 acres a day. And at this point, you're going to want to consider a bigger machine. For heavier brush, or in instances where you get a lot of trees over 8 inches in diameter, I really wouldn't recommend one of these smaller units. They can clear an 8-inch diameter tree or above, it just takes a bit longer. And at this rate, you're only going to get about a half to 1 acre a day. Next up, we have the 2 to 400 horsepower machine. And these mulching heads are typically put on a big articulating loader, like this Tiger Cat 275 horsepower machine. Let's check out what this bad boy can do. Awesome, right? Now that machine is going to run around $2,750 a day, sometimes $3,000 a day, just depending on the size and who you're using. But your productivity goes way up. In light terrain, you're going to get 7 to 10 acres cleared a day, like on this first sendero. In medium terrain, where you're clearing a lot of mid-sized mesquite, you're going to get around 5 acres a day. And on some of that heavier terrain, you'll get 2 to 3 acres per day on these bigger machines. Now before I move on, I do want to cover one more class of machine. And those are the behemoth 450 to 600 plus horsepower machines. I'm going to say these are real monsters on tracks. But honestly, I don't know much about them. So if you're an expert on these type of machines or their productivity, feel free to leave a comment in the comment sections below. I'd really like to learn more about them. I rarely see them in South Texas clearing. I'm not saying they're not out there. I just haven't seen them very often. And one reason is I think these 200 to 300 horsepower machines do a really good job, so there's not a need for all that extra horsepower. Where I've seen those machines most commonly is when they're clearing pipeline right-of-ways through heavy timber, or if they've got a large suburban development also through heavy woodlands or timber. Now if you're wondering the type of projects that landowners in South Texas are hiring these mulchers for, keep in mind some landowners are really focused on cattle production, while others are ultra into the wildlife habitat. As I mentioned, this landowner was mainly focused on cattle production, but he is going to clear some additional senderos. And one of the reasons for that is number one, to increase the edge of wildlife habitat. And number two, he's going to plant those new senderos with some forage to hopefully get some better utilization from his cattle out there. But these machines are also used to clear new roads, new fence lines, as well as new food plot areas. Another interesting project this landowner is doing is he's got a big open field that's got some brush encroachment in it. And he's having Theron and brush busters just run over it really fast while they're out there before he comes back with a bigger root plow. If you're still with me here at the end of the video, thank you. I hope you learned something and I hope you enjoyed the content. It'd mean a lot to me if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you a part of the landowner community. If you want to learn more about land in Texas, go check out one of my other videos, like the one I did on axis deer, or the one I talk about how many whitetail there really are in Texas. Thanks so much and I'll see you on the next video.